What's up, everybody? We're learning Java. We're going to jump into it right away. The first thing we'll do is download and install Java and Eclipse. So if you already have those set up, you can go ahead and skip the next few minutes. I'll put the timestamp in the description for the exact time that you can skip to. And for everybody else, let's get started and download Java and Eclipse. The first thing we need to do is download Java. We'll go to Google, type Oracle Java. And we'll click on Oracle's site. We'll click Java Downloads. Let's select the latest version and select whichever operating system you're on. I'm on Windows, and then we'll hit 64-bit installer. We don't want the compressed archive or the MSI installer. We want the 64-bit installer. This will download the executable for us, and then we can open it once it's done. The installer is downloaded. Now we can hit next, and just make note of where this is installing to, because we're going to need to open it up as soon as it's installed. We'll hit next, and it'll install Java for us. Once it's done, hit close, and mine installed to my C drive. So I'm just going to hit C:, and run that. And then I'll go to the Java folder that is here now, hit bin, and once we're inside of the bin, we're going to hit the bar on top and copy this path. Then we're going to go to the start bar, type system environment variables, edit the system environment variables, click the environment variables in the bottom right hand corner. In this bottom part here, we'll find path, click edit, new, and we'll paste that value in that we copied from our bin folder. Hit OK, OK, and OK. To make sure everything works okay, we'll go to the start menu and bring up our command prompt, and we'll just type java -- version. And everything went okay. It just says that I have the newest version of Java, version 19.0.2. So I'll close this, and let's go download Eclipse now. Just go to Google, type Eclipse. We want the results from the eclipse.org. We'll click the orange download button and get Eclipse IDE 2022, hit download again, and it's just downloading the executable. We can open it once it's finished. And now it'll ask me which version of Eclipse I want. I'm downloading it for Java, so I'll hit Eclipse IDE for Java developers. You can choose to create the start menu entry and the desktop shortcut if you want. And here it's just showing the version of Java we have, which is the version that we just downloaded. We can hit install. Once it's done installing, let's hit launch. It'll ask us to select a directory as workspace. This is just where it's going to save all of your Java files that you make. I'm just going to leave mine and hit launch. And once it starts up, we can make a simple little program just to test that everything is working okay. It'll bring up this welcome window, which I can close. And I'm just going to hit this little icon in the top left-hand corner. If I hover over it, it says new. We'll hit that, and we'll hit new Java project. Choose whatever project name we want. And I'm going to unselect create module info.java file and hit finish. Now we can see that first project that we just made up to the left in our package explorer. I'm going to right click it, hit new and class. It has automatically put it inside of the first project package. I'm going to get rid of that just so that it saves in the default package. And then for name, I'll write first class. I'll select public static void main and hit finish. And here we have our Java file. I'll zoom in nice and big so it's visible. And let's get rid of this auto-generated method stub. Inside of our main method here, inside of these two braces, I'm just going to write system.out.println I like Java. And I'll hit the green triangle on top, which will just run our program. And we just get I like Java printed out. So there's a few things to mention here in this quick little test program that we just made. The first thing we can point out is the system.out.println, which is just what you use in Java for basic output to the screen. So when we put I like Java inside of quotations, then we just get I like Java printed out to the screen. The second thing to mention is our main method. The main method is just the code that runs when the program starts up. So whatever is inside of our opening brace here and our closing brace here is going to be run when the program starts. In our case, that's just the one line of code, which is system.out.println I like Java. And as well as a main method, we have a class. Mine is named first class. And the class is everything between this opening brace and this closing brace down here. A good way to think of a class is just to think of it like a section of code. So when we start writing some bigger programs, then we're going to have a bunch of different classes and they'll all interact with each other. So a class is just a section of code in your program. And a method, like our main method, is just a section of code that does something. Classes will often have more than one method inside of them. Right now ours just has one method, which is the main method, which is the one that runs when the program starts. And right above our system.out.println, we're going to put a comment. To do that in Java, we just put 2 forward slashes. And now everything on the rest of this line is a comment, which just means that it's not going to be read as code when this program gets executed. So here I'm just going to explain what's happening with our system.out.println. I'll just put output to the console, because system.out.println is how we output to the console. And you can see Eclipse has put this in green to identify that it's a comment. If we got rid of these 2 forward slashes, then now we would get an error because output to the console isn't a valid command in Java. So we have to have those 2 slashes in there so that this doesn't get read as code when the program gets run. Next, let's make some variables. A variable is just a piece of memory that you set aside to hold a value inside of your program. And there's a whole bunch of different kinds of variables. Right now we'll just go over a few of them that you use most often. And you don't have to memorize every single one of these right away. You'll use them a whole bunch as you start writing Java programs. So if you don't remember them after this video, that is okay. You'll see them again. I'll put another comment. We're going to go over ints, doubles, booleans, chars, and strings, because those are some of the most commonly used variables. First, we're going to make an integer variable, which is just a variable that holds a whole number. So it can't hold a decimal, it just holds whole numbers. To make an integer variable, we're just going to type int, my int, and then a semicolon. A semicolon in Java just ends a statement, which is just a line of code that does something. So if you don't include the semicolon, this won't run, which is kind of annoying, and you'll definitely forget at some point to put it in, and it'll be really annoying. So we've indicated that the type of our variable is an integer by typing int, and then my int is the name of this variable. So that's the name of the little piece of memory that we've set aside to hold a value that will be a whole number. And right now we haven't put any value inside of it, it's empty. On the next line, we can put a value inside of it just by typing my int equals 10. So now the little piece of memory that we've named my int and set aside to hold an integer value has the value 10 inside of it. So if we print it out, then we'll just get 10 printed out. We can do the same as we did before, system.out.println, but this time instead of quotation marks, we're just going to put my int, and then it'll just print out the value 10. So up here we put I like Java inside of quotation marks, so it printed out exactly what we put inside of the quotation marks. If you don't put the quotation marks and you just put a variable name, then it'll just print out the value of the variable. So if we run this right now, we get I like Java and 10. The next variable we're going to make is a double, which is just a variable that can hold a decimal value. So integers can't have decimals, so if we want a decimal value, we just use a double. So we'll go double my double with a semicolon. And then on the next line, we'll just give it a value. My double equals 12.55 or whatever value you want to give it. And again, we'll just print this out using system.out.println. And again, we'll just run it. We'll get I like Java, 10, and 12.55 printed out. So what we've done with both of our variables is we've made the variable first, and then on the next line, we've given it a value. Making the variable is called declaring the variable. And giving it a value is just called initializing the variable. And for both of our variables, we did these on separate lines, but you can actually do it on the same line. Let's just do that on our top example for the integer. So we could go int my int equals 10, all on one line of code. So that's declaring and initializing in one line of code instead of 2, just to save a little bit of space. And then we can get rid of the my int equals 10 on the next line because my int already equals 10 from the first line. Now let's make a Boolean variable. A Boolean variable is just a variable that can only have a value of true or false. So let's call it Boolean is hungry. Booleans are often used like this just to keep track of a value in the program. So like if we had a person then we would keep track of whether they were hungry or not with the variable is hungry. And let's just declare and initialize it on the same line. So we'll go boolean is hungry equals true. And on our next line, we'll just print it out. Same as we did with our other variables. And we'll just get the value true printed to the console. And next, let's make a char. We'll go char my char equals single quotation mark a. And a char is just a single character. So we said, hey Java, set aside some area in memory that will just hold one single character and no more. So now if we print out my char, then we'll just get the letter A printed to the console after all of our other stuff. And the last type of variable that we're going to make is a string. We'll go string, and notice this time there's a capital S on the string, whereas all of our other variables just had lowercase letters to start. When you make a string, it won't work if you type it with a lowercase s. So we'll go capital S, string, my string equals, hi, my name is Nick. So as you can tell, a string is just a collection of characters, and we put them inside of double quotations, whereas our single character just got put inside of single quotations. If we tried putting double quotations around our character, then it wouldn't work. It would say, hey, you're trying to put a string inside of this variable that you've said is only going to hold a character, so you can't do that. So we'll change that back to single quotations, and the same thing would happen here if we tried changing our double quotes to single quotes. It would say, hey, this is supposed to be a string, what are you doing? So we'll change that back, and we can just print this string out in the same way. My string, and we'll run this and we'll get all of our variables output to the console. And there's just one more thing I should mention about variables, which is called the scope of variables. So right now we remember that in our main method we have this opening brace and this closing brace. All the variables that we've just made are only visible inside of these braces. Right now it's not entirely relevant to us because we only have our one main method, but say we had another method down here, then it wouldn't be able to see the variables that we just made. And just for the sake of explaining scope, I'll also put a little if statement inside of our main method. You don't have to know what this is right now, it's just to explain the scope of variables. So if we said something like if my int is equal to 10, and then we put a set of braces here, and then we made another integer inside of here. So if we went int new int equals 12, then this variable new int that we've made is only visible inside of these braces here. So I could print it out inside of our if statement, system.out.println new int, and that would work. But if I tried printing it out outside of the if statement, then the variable doesn't exist anymore. It only exists inside of this opening brace and this closing brace that we've made it inside of. So we would get an error if we tried printing it out outside of that opening brace and closing brace of the if statement. Inside of this if statement, we can access the variables that we've made outside of it. So inside of these braces for the if statement, we could access my char that we've made outside of it. So we could just print out the char again inside of the if statement. And that's because we're still inside of the opening brace of the main method and the closing brace of the main method. So for all of our other variables that we made outside of the if statement, the opening brace before them was the one for the main method, so they're visible anywhere inside of the main method. But for new int here, the opening brace before it is the one for the if statement. So as soon as that if statement is done, then it's not a variable anymore. It doesn't exist. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll put a link in the description to this full Java playlist and also to some awesome books to check out for anyone just getting started learning Java.